Welcome to Waking the Why, a podcast about uncovering the purpose behind life's crucible moments. Each episode, you'll hear from real people who turn their struggles into strength and their stories into light. If you're searching for meaning, walking through something hard, or just love stories that stir the soul, you're in the right place.
Hello, friends, and welcome to Waking the Why, where we discover the purpose behind life's crucible moments. My name is Stacy Peterson, and our guest today is Trevor Anderson. And you guys, Trevor's my neighbor, but just a couple months ago, we figured out we're family.
Related.
We are, which is so cool.
Great.
It is. Gotta love that. Well, thank you, Trevor, for being here.
Happy to be here.
To start, why don't you just tell us your story?
Crazy story. Started way back. I was trying to think about it last night, how many years we've been dealing with this. And first transplant was in 2013. So it was probably 2010-ish that I went to a football game, and obviously University of Utah football game.
Yep.
I walked in, was totally fine. And then halfway through the game, my feet felt like kind of tight, like stretched out. I looked down and I was wearing flip-flops because it was a hot day in the middle of the sun in the summer, or not the summer, football before, winter season. My feet were swollen, and I was like, what the heck is going on? Like, my feet, they don't swell. Like, I'm just skinny ankles forever. It was just really weird. I noticed it at halftime because we were going to go get a drink or whatever. And by the end of the game, they were swollen enough that, like, my flip-flops were pressing in, like, made an imprint in my feet. So it was like maybe 2 hours of, like, nothing to what the heck is wrong with you kind of thing. And I remember, like, telling Michelle, like, look at my feet. Like, how weird is this? And we, like, laughed about it. Like, you look like a hobbit. You have, like, big, swollen feet.
Right.
And that was, like, the beginning of everything. We've kind of...
How old were you in 2010?
I was 28. Because, 2010 I was 25. Because I had surgery when I was 29. So we dealt with it for a little while. Actually, Stace, let's go back. Because it wasn't... I had dealt with going through surgery and pre-surgery, going through all the dialysis stuff. It was only a couple of years. So it had to have been 2011. So 2011, swollen feet, didn't think about it at all. I was like, you know what? Probably hot sun.
Weird flu.
Yeah. Too much salt. Who knows?
Yeah, come on.
So I just played it off and went to my sister's house that Sunday, and we'd play games on the weekends because they lived close. So we were playing games and we were just kind of laughing about it. Like, hey, this happened at the game. And my parents were like, oh, that's weird. Because they're always, my brother had cancer when we were in elementary school. So it's kind of like on the surface all the time. What's going on? Because my family is a genetic cesspool, I think. So they're like, oh, that's really weird. And so we started talking about what happened, how fast it happened. And they're like, yeah, my mom told me that her dad passed away when he was early 30s, really young. And he passed away from kidney failure. And I was like, is this something that we probably should have talked about at some point? I don't know. Yeah. And he had hemophilia, same as me. So he had a bleeding disorder and kidney failure and passed away.
And you knew you had hemophilia before this. Okay.
Yeah, from birth, right? Okay. So we were dealing with all the bleeding stuff anyway. Yeah. Again, genetic cesspool, you just keep adding stuff on. So we talked about that and they were like, yeah, you probably should go get that checked. And I was like, oh my gosh, something else, right? So I went to the doctor, got labs. My family practice doctor, as soon as the labs came back, he was like, this is past me. This is somebody else. Your numbers are not great. Let's send you off to a specialist because I'm not going to stick a fork in that. So bad enough at that point that it was just your body is past the point where we can do anything preventative pre-specialist. Just go. So I went to see a specialist. The first specialist was terrible, tried to get me on dialysis right away. And it was just kind of a crappy situation. It was really weird. Just first guy we went to go see. My dad knew somebody, he's a pharmaceutical sales rep or was, and he knew a nephrologist that had been practicing forever. And so I was like, let's see if we can go in to see him. And his name was Harry Sinection. Great guy. Sad that he's retired. But he was like, yeah, there's stuff going on. We've got to figure this out. And I was like, what do you think about dialysis? He's like, oh no, we're not ready for dialysis. You're 3-4 years away from possibly transplant. Let's not think about dialysis for a while. And so we just started preventative stuff. High doses of prednisone, all the Lasix to get fluid off your body. When in the process, prednisone made me diabetic, which is fantastic. So hemophilia, kidney failure, diabetes, which was not fun. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. Terrible. But we tried for months and he was like, you know what? I know we said years, but you really need to go on dialysis. It's time. And dialysis, I literally didn't understand the whole process of dialysis. Being a hemophiliac with dialysis ideally they put a fistula in your arm. So it's just like a big plastic tube that they surgically go in and they cut your vein and attach it to the plastic tube and cover it back up again.
Right.
So they can stick the needles in a plastic tube instead of your vein. Sounds gruesome. It's a big procedure for somebody who can't clot, right? Because that's what hemophilia is. Couldn't do that. When there's another way to do hemodialysis where they go through your jugular and they stick a tube down your jugular. That was the option for me, obviously. So we did that, and
Do anything.
it can be the easy way. Yeah. So it was just kind of like one thing after the next, and it was just like, okay, like we're trying to stay tough, trying to stay strong. Have 2 kids at the time, Brock and Maggie, and they're just little, and so we're just trying to play the game, being a parent, dealing with all the medical, and then dialysis happened. And I remember walking the first day into dialysis. I love the people there. They're amazing people. They're fighting for their lives. The nurses are amazing. My sister's actually a dialysis tech right now, and great people. But I walked in and I was like, no, this is not my jam.
Right,
Like, I'm 28. Honestly, I was probably half the age, if not lower than half the age of the average in the room. All older people, not a lot of young people. And I think they looked like, I remember the whole room. It felt like everybody was staring at me, which it wasn't, but everybody's staring at me and they're like, what the crap is wrong with you, you know? And so I walked back to my chair. My dad came with me for my first time in there. We had breakfast like it was going to be some cool, like, so eat some breakfast when you do dialysis.
Hang out together.
No, this is not how it is. So they hooked me up, and it was just such a weird, I remember just feeling like out of place. How did we come to this point? You know, there's constant ups and downs through any medical struggle for anybody, but for me in particular, that moment, I just remember like feeling like that was the bottom. Holy cow, everything is real. You're here, it's 5:30 in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, so you can get done before you go to work. So you're there for 2.5 hours, and it was 3 days a week. And so, yeah, and you just deal with the struggle of that, and it was a pain. And lucky for me, I mean, we were able to find a donor like super fast. I was on dialysis for 3 months.
Oh.
So super quick, like felt like forever at the time. But yeah, we found a donor, which is a miracle in and of itself. Like, she was definitely not the demographic of who I would put through. Like, she was much older than I was, and she had a dream and felt like she was the person that needed to be pushed through. And it was her, she was the match, which is amazing. And I owe her so much. I just saw him the other day, and it was great to give her a hug and just kind of relive that moment. But so perfect match, which was like 2 in a billion. Like, it's crazy, the numbers, the statistics that go behind it, and things went super quick. They wanted a few more weeks of dialysis, and everything went fast. Went to the hospital, everything went good. Surgery went just fine. It never, like, they always check your creatinine levels, and it never dropped quite to where they wanted it to be. They wanted to get below 1, and I was always like 1.2. Before surgery, I was like 8 point something, so really bad. But they were like, hey, you have a kidney, you instantly feel better, which is an awesome thing. You wake up, you don't feel pain. You just feel like this relief, like 1, which is so weird. Yeah.
It's easy. So I'm going to ask just a dumb, ignorant question because I have zero idea. Well, we had 2 kidneys, right?
2 of them.
Did you just needed 1?
So they took both of mine out
Okay.
before surgery, because neither one of mine obviously was working, and they were kind of shriveled up, like almost like making me more sick than, so they're like, let's just take them out. So yeah, 1 week before surgery, I had a nephrectomy, a double nephrectomy. So they took both of my kidneys out.
Okay.
So they just put the 1 back in because you only have to have 1.
That's right.
And that's why it's so tough, because in surgery, like after surgery, I was sitting there in the hospital and you feel instantly better. Like, yes, you're dealing with surgery, but life is different. Like, you're like, holy cow, there's potential again, right? You have this hope you can raise your kids. You just, all these things come back. And they don't ever put you next to your donor, like your rooms side by side, because the donor feels like crap. And it's just a crappy deal that they don't feel good. And she had a reaction, like an allergic reaction to some medication she took after surgery. So she felt like extra crap. And so they're constantly like, hey, you got to be up, you have to be walking, we got to do stairs, we got to get you moving. And she's in her room, and her room is black. Like, she does not feel good. She leaves the lights off, the windows pulled, and her husband, he would come over and just see how I was doing. He'd take Michelle, they'd go down and get lunch or whatever. And great to see him, but then you feel guilty, right? The guilt sets in and you're like, man, I just can't believe what that person just went through for me. So you feel like a huge sense of like gratitude and guilt mixed at the same time.
Right.
That's a tough bag. But she's fantastic now. She ran marathons. She's doing amazing things. And yes, you can survive with 1 kidney, and you can survive just great with just 1 kidney. So yeah, life was good. Everything was great. It was 5-6 years before we started seeing some symptoms and things kind of changing a little bit, and more attributed to like how they used to do transplant versus how they do it now. They do a lot more cleaning, a lot of different things. And back to where we were.
5-6 years later.
Yeah, it was total. So that's when we started seeing it. We started like getting follow-up appointments and kind of wrestling with it. It was 9 years before it failed, like to the point where it was like back on dialysis. And the second transplant is much more difficult to get. Because you've already had one. In my case, I had rejected the kidney, and so my body had a ton of rejection. Like it's really hard to match. I was like 99% unmatchable when they do all the testing, and it's because you go through the process of like killing your kidney. So your body's creating all these antibodies to fight everything, and those don't go away. So yeah, I've 99% not transplantable. Like they ever said that you just can be on dialysis. So got back on dialysis. This time we did peritoneal dialysis, which is much better for me. But they stick a tube in your abdomen, and it goes all the way down to the base of your abdomen, and it just has holes in the tube. And when you're on peritoneal dialysis, they put fluid in your body, and it just sits there overnight, and it kind of absorbs all the bad stuff in your body, and then they suck it back out, and you're done for the day.
So you do it at home.
But it's every day, and it's at night. So you go to bed, you hook up to the machine. If you're going to be on it for 8 hours, whatever, you hook up, fill yourself up. You stay hooked to the machine because it goes out and back in 3 or 4 times during the night. Super hard struggle. Like the dealing with dialysis, because if you can imagine, like you have a hose and you put a bunch of holes in it, and then you turn the faucet up all the way, and you're not holding the hose moves around.
Right.
And that motion inside your body, feels really weird, and it's super painful because it's like flapping around, hitting organs and all kinds of things. Like it's not glamorous by any stretch of the imagination. You're supposed to sleep through all of this, and I'm a stomach sleeper, or I was before. Yeah. So I have this tube, and you can't sleep on your stomach, so I'm sleeping on my back. This machine is pumping fluid in and out of my body all night long, trying to stay quiet because Michelle's asleep right next to me, all while you're attached to a machine that you can't detach from, and it's like a 20-foot hose. So you have basically 40 feet, and mentally, like I just broke down. Like I had huge issues just because every night I would wake up because of the pain and then pace. You had 40 feet to pace. And you're trying to be quiet because obviously Michelle's asleep. Like I could get from my bed to the toilet in my bathroom, and that was pretty much it. And so, like I said, that kind of up and down of dealing with everything coming through, it was just...
How many years did you do that?
4.5 years. And it was like, it got better towards the end. Your body kind of adapts to it and you feel a little bit better. But it was like pain medication to try to deal with the pain of what's happening inside your body, tube flipping around. Eventually your body kind of builds around it and it doesn't move quite so much, but it's still a painful process. I mean, stuff sucks up against the tubes. And
you thought that was better than doing the other type of dialysis?
If I had done the other type of dialysis, it was really temporary because hooking into your jugular is really dangerous for infection. And so they really would have wanted to put the fistula in. And like I said, for me,
it wouldn't work.
Yeah. And you're gone in the morning. This was at home at night. So at least you're home,
My aunt, she passed away when she was 40. She was diagnosed with juvenile diabetes when she was, I think, 6 or 7 years old.
Oh, that's real.
I really just remember Gloria on dialysis forever. And so she was on dialysis forever. She did get a kidney transplant. Mm-hmm. I wish I remembered all the timeline and how long. Like it lasted for a while.
Yeah.
But then she needed another one. And she just told us as a family, she's just like, I cannot go back on dialysis. I just can't. I can't do it. And so like I have zero idea what it's like, right? But watching my family member and just her expression, that just has always stayed with me of like, that is not pleasant or a way that anyone would obviously choose to live, right? So I get it. That's just crazy.
Dialysis is designed for minimum, like you have minimum life capability, but it gives you just enough to stay alive. So it's like, if you're constantly teetering on the edge of dying and staying alive, like that line is not a fun line to be on. And so it constantly keeps you right there. Like your body, like you're still like almost orange, like you almost look Oompa Loompa-ish. Like, and I definitely could see all of that. Your medications are still the way they are. And it's just your ability to drink. Like I love water. Like I love to drink water, and you're drinking less than a bottle, like a 16-ounce bottle of water a day. Because everything you put in doesn't come out. You have no kidneys, so you literally can't go to the bathroom and just let that out. So for 4.5 years, it sounds funny, but for 4.5 years, you don't pee. Like Does not happen.
That is just, it's so
It's
hard.
the weirdest thing.
So were you on prednisone for like a long time? Because I'm telling you, I was on prednisone for like 3 weeks one time after, and it messed with me in a way that every time, like I'm dealing with an ear thing right now, and I went to the doctor and he's like, well, will you put you on prednisone? And I'm like, is that required?
And
I literally went crazy.
Yeah, it is brutal. Once you start on prednisone, when you're in kidney failure, you live on prednisone. Like I take, even today, it's manageable in that your body naturally produces 5 milligrams anyway. So I'm on 5 milligrams of prednisone every day just to kind of mimic what may not be producing in my body. So really not bad. But yeah, there were times that I'd be in the hospital and it'd be 600 milligrams of prednisone. And it was so bad. It's so bad.
Oh, I can't even imagine.
Well, and plus prednisone, doctors don't really know what it does for you. They just know that it helps sometimes.
Yeah.
And so they throw prednisone at you and you're like, well, like I have 2 kids at home that have a cough that won't go away.
Yeah.
They're both on 30 milligrams of prednisone as of yesterday. So you get like ornery, hungry. It's just, I mean, that was the funny part with prednisone. Funny story. When I was working at Nelson Homes, my first transplant, like I'm a skinny guy. I was a skinny guy, like, but super skinny. I wouldn't, like, I'd go to lunch or whatever and just eat a little bit. Like I wasn't a big eater. And on prednisone, you are hungry all the time. It's crazy. And I don't know if you noticed that. But
are you kidding me? You can imagine this. Sitting by Cody, and I had, noticed my face. And I looked at Cody and I said, does my face look fat? And it's probably not a fair question to ask your husband, right? Because he was like,
What do you
and then he just kind of like, shook his head a little bit, because that's hard, because he doesn't want to lie. And I just, one, so I didn't like what it was doing to me physically, but 2, it literally made I feel like my mind was going crazy. I was going crazy with it.
100%.
And I think I was on it 3, maybe 4 weeks tops. But yeah.
Yeah, so you can imagine the level of crazy. I mean, we're back in 2011. We're just a few years on it now.
I wouldn't say you're crazy, but I don't know if people really notice like what you're actually experiencing, right? So 4.5 years.
4.5 years.
Then what?
Then the hospital told us, and this is like probably the darkest days of transplant, because you get to a point where you're not transplantable. Like they said, we cannot find a match for you. It's physically not possible. And we hadn't had that definitive answer, but I was at the University of Utah and my dad was being tested. And the first round, they wouldn't let my family be tested because they said there was a chance of reoccurrence of the disorder that caused the failure. Well, we're 10 plus years past that. And so like, we aren't worried about it now. Let's just get people tested. Well, my dad obviously would be my first choice. I have a brother with Down syndrome, maybe a second choice, but do you put them through something like that? It's really hard. So my dad was really like, he was a match and had some heart issues like that he had to deal with that he didn't know he had. And so they said, no, you're not a match anymore. And so we got a phone call from transplant surgeons or the people at the transplant clinic to tell us that. We didn't know it. And so we set up an appointment to call on the phone. And my dad and I were like, yeah, sweet. They're going to tell us we're good to go. Like everything's good. Because he hadn't seen or noticed anything wrong. So we're sitting there on the phone. And I remember the non-caring voice of a surgeon on the phone. And they're like, look, your dad's not a match. We've tried everybody else. There's not going to be a match. You need to come to grips with the fact that you're not going to be transplanted. That's tough. That's not easy to deal with because dialysis sucks. I mean, it's just not a thing you want to do long term. Plus, it's just so much stuff everywhere, like medical stuff everywhere. So I remember that conversation and he told me, he said, you know what, I recommend that you let your kids know. And it was just like, you don't think about that. Like, do I let my kids know? Like, how much do they know? At that point, we had all of our kids. Like, we had 6 kids. And Brock and Maggie obviously dealt with surgery the first time. And most of my kids, well, my youngest 2, didn't know me healthy. They've never seen dad healthy. And so they've constantly lived the life of up and down. And so super hard pill to swallow. And I remember talking to Michelle and being like, hey, we're going to have to talk to our kids about this. Like, this is our future. You know, we have to come to grips with it. Because I think in medical, you have to get to a point where you just have to just take it by the bull by the horns and you just deal with it, right? You can't keep ignoring the signs, the symptoms, because the more you ignore it, the worse off it is. So 10 plus years of dealing with that kind of stuff, you're just like, we're just take the news, we bring it in, we internalize it, come to grips with it, and then move on, because you have to move on. And so I remember it was a Sunday after church, more in the evening time. Our younger ones had gone to bed, and Brock and Maggie were on the couch, and Michelle and I were like, let's tell them, like, let's rip off the Band-Aid. Like, that is not a Band-Aid. Rip off, that's terrible. So I remember like the struggle of just coming to grips with the fact that I'm going to say it out loud to someone else. Because when you say it out loud, it feels real, right? So they're sitting on the couch, and I was like, okay guys, the doctor said this, so really the future for us, there's no future for me. I'm going to die. Really hard to say. Like, I had never said that up to that point, because there's always the fight, right? You just are going to give everything you have, and you're going to leave nothing left, and you're always going to make it. There's never an end. Putting that into words was really difficult. And I remember the struggle for me and Michelle as I said it, like how real it was. And Brock and Maggie just sat there on the couch, like totally stoic, had nothing to say. And I remember the moment being upset, like kind of pissed, like, I just told you I'm dying, right? And you're sitting there quiet. And like, as I reflect back, like that's their coping mechanism, because it had to learn them, which I feel bad about, because they shouldn't have had to learn a coping mechanism of how you deal with that's crap, So they sat there, and as I've thought about it from that point on, like they've had already come to grips with the fact that I was going to be gone. Like, it wasn't news to them. Like, they had seen the decline. So it wasn't like, oh, well, he said it. That didn't mean anything. They're living it. And so they had already, like, those two are really close, but that moment was really, really, really tough. Reliving that moment again, I can't even imagine trying to deal with that again. Like, it's great to pass away when you're old, because people kind of just know, and you don't have to tell people. But if you're young and you have to tell people that you're going to die, like, it's just super, super hard. And the internal struggle from, like, we told Ben, the oldest too, and we're like, we are not telling anyone else. Like, I'm not dealing with that anymore. Like, we're not going to deal with that. And as your wife, dealing with that, and your husband passing away, and all the thoughts of, now you have to go through, what does life look like without your husband? And do you remarry? Well, you got 6 kids, and like all the things, right? And I'm so lucky to have Michelle. She's amazing that she's had, like, she can deal with that and compartmentalize enough to say, okay, I'm going to deal with that problem when it comes. Let's focus on the problem now. And she's obviously my rock going through all of it. She's amazing. And we were like, we cannot accept just death, right? Like, you still have that fight in you. And I was like, that surgeon was not right. Like, he's not smart. Surgeons aren't smart.
Thank you for joining me on Waking the Why. If today's story moved you, share it with someone who needs it. And don't forget, your why is worth waking up for.